Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the first in our series with SABSA and ACBSP Region 8. We're delighted to have everybody on the call. Just so that you're aware, South African Business Schools Association has 23 accredited member schools, all accredited by our South African Council of Higher Education, and they all offer an MBA or an MBL. So today's webinar is part of a series that is designed to add value to the respective memberships of both SABSA and the ACBSP Region 8. And the workshops are going to be taking place between now and October. So we have a whole lot of webinars which are designed to keep you interested and keep learning as part of our capacity development. Today's session is especially aimed at academics and emerging researchers who may not yet have had the opportunity to present or publish through an academic conference and who want practical guidance on how to take an idea and shape it into a clear, focused, and compelling conference abstract. So this links directly into the upcoming ACBSP Region 8 conference, which is going to take place at STIAS in Stellenbosch from the 5th to the 7th of November this year. And the theme of that is the AI revolution. It's reshaping business, reinventing education, and transforming our world. A really topical topic. A strong abstract is often the first step towards participating meaningfully in that academic conversation. So today, we're delighted to welcome Denver Gregg, who's from Boston City campus and the chairperson of ACBSP Region 8. And he will say a few words on behalf of ACBSP Region 8. And thereafter, we're going to move to our very own Professor Cobus Oosthuizen, who is the Dean of Postgraduate Studies at Boston City campus and chair of SABSA. He's also the guest editor of the special edition in Perspectives in Education, and he will lead today's workshop. Cobus has extensive education in postgraduate management education, business school leadership, academic strategy, and research development. And we're very grateful to have him guiding this important session. So over to you, Denver. I'm pleased to hand over to you now.
Thank you so much, Anne. Let me just share my screen quickly. I just want to confirm that you can see the PowerPoint presentation.
It's coming up, not yet.
Anyway, I'll start talking to it.
There it's up. It's up now.
Perfect.
Thanks, Denver.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anne. We're very delighted at ACBSP Region 8, this is the international region for ACBSP, to be in a 3-year partnership with SABSA to really add value to both of our memberships and to anyone outside in Africa, Asia, Europe, or the Middle East or Oceania. We're very keen to add value, and we think working with SABSA is really going to add value, and we hope that this does add value, and we're very keen to hear from you to confirm that what we're doing is adding value. So that's the goal for us at the moment. And this is the first of several workshops. Between now and October, we're going to be hosting about 8 workshops, and each of them are going to be slightly different and to a different audience. We're very excited to have new academics here who are keen to present at a conference for the first time or get published. And we're very committed to working with these academics as we host our conference. And so we have Cobus, who's the guest editor, and we'll be doing a few sessions to help those academics who are keen to publish. And we just want to encourage everyone in this session, if you're thinking of wanting to publish or present at a conference, our call for papers is open at our Region 8 conference, which is the international conference to be hosted in Stellenbosch. You can click on the QR code or scan the QR code and go and register and submit your abstracts. And just 3 ways to participate. We encourage you to come to the next webinar, submit an abstract by the 31st of July, and join us in Stellenbosch. And yeah, we're just thankful for this opportunity. And yeah, thank you, Anne, so much.
Thanks very much, Denver. Right, let's get into the topic of today, which is Cobus Oosthuizen and presenting on how to write this amazing extract. Over to you, Cobus.
Thank you so much, Anne. Let me just get my screen shared. If you can just give me kind of a thumbs up.
We can see the screen.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Denver. Thank you. Colleagues, good morning, and an absolute pleasure to be with you in this virtual emporium and to share with you a few thoughts on writing a strong abstract within the context of this upcoming conference. So, again, just emphasizing also our appreciation to yourselves. Thank you for joining us online today. So the focus for this session is practical and developmental. So how to write a strong conference abstract. And over the next, let's say, 70 odd minutes, we will look at what makes an abstract clear, focused, credible, and compelling. But more importantly, we'll treat the abstract not merely as a short administrative requirement for conference submission aid, but as the first scholarly step in a much larger journey. Because a strong abstract does several things, colleagues. It introduces the topic, identifies the problem or the gap, clarifies the purpose of the paper, it signals the approach, and indicates, of course, the contribution. In other words, it gives reviewers confidence that the proposed presentation has academic direction, it has relevance, and it has value. And of course, especially important in the context of the upcoming ACBSP Region 8 conference in Stellenbosch. The abstract you submit now may become the foundation for your conference presentation. And for some presenters, that conference paper may later even be developed into a manuscript for possible publication in the Perspectives in Education Special Edition. So colleagues, today's session is not only about getting an abstract accepted. It's about beginning well. Because when the abstract is clear, the paper already has a stronger foundation. So the session will include some conceptual framing, some practical guidance, and also examples of common abstract weaknesses. And I don't want to call it a short writing clinic, but let's rather call it a short exercise towards the end, or an activity rather. And I encourage you to think throughout the session about your own possible abstract and whether it's already drafted or still just an idea. But before we get into the detail, let me just briefly map the journey for our session today in the next 60, 70 odd minutes. And I've designed the session as practical, rather than a purely theoretical presentation. So the aim is that you leave not only with a better understanding of what a strong abstract looks like, but also with a practical structure you can use to draft and to test or revise your own conference abstract. So let's just briefly do a pit stop at each of those 6 number balls that you see on the screen. Now, the first one would be that we'll be talking about is why the abstract actually matters. And I want to suggest to you that an abstract is more than a summary. And here's the key words that you might want to write down. It's a scholarly promise. It's a scholarly promise. It tells the reviewer what you intend to do, why it matters, and why your work belongs in the conference program. And then the second one there, we move from the topic to the contribution. So many abstracts remain too broad because they stop at the level of a generic topic. A stronger abstract moves from a topic to a problem, to purpose, and of course to an argument, and then finally to the contribution. But this will all, we'll get layer for layer for layer, go deeper. And then thirdly, we'll unpack the anatomy, and you'll see why I call it an anatomy of a strong abstract. And here we will work with a practical structure that you can use across different kinds of submissions, whether it's empirical, whether it's conceptual, whether it's case-based or reflective or practice-oriented. And then fourthly, we'll consider fit, flaws. I nearly said fits. I mean fit, flaws, and fixes. In other words, how do we align an abstract with a conference? And how do we avoid common weaknesses that make reviewers uncertain? And fifthly is the short activity, which will give you time to apply the framework to your own idea, even if your abstract is still at a very early stage. And then finally, we'll briefly connect the first step to the broader publication pathway. So the abstract can become the foundation for the conference paper, and the conference paper then in turn may later become the foundation for a journal article. So let's call it the movement today is quite deliberate. It's from the idea to the abstract to the paper to possible publication. So with that kind of journey in mind, let's make the expected outcomes for the session also just explicit, because like any good academic, we have to have outcomes, eh? So by the end of the session today, I hope you'll be able to do these practical things that you see on the screen. So firstly, that you should be able to explain the purpose and function of a conference abstract. And of course, colleagues, this may sound obvious, eh? But many scholars are, or rather not scholars, abstracts rather, are weak precisely because the writer is not clear on what the abstract is supposed to do. And then you should also be able to distinguish between a topic, a problem, a purpose, an argument, and a contribution. And again, perhaps stating the obvious, but these are not the same thing. A topic tells us the general area, a problem tells us why the work is necessary, and a purpose tells us what the paper will do, and an argument gives the paper direction. And a contribution tells us why the work matters. And then I hope that you'll also be able to identify the core components of a strong conference abstract, and we will work with a practical structure that includes context, problem, gap, purpose, approach, key insight, and contribution. And then you should also be able to align your abstract with a conference theme. The expected audience, the broader scholarly conversation. Because as I said earlier, a good abstract is not generic. It speaks to a particular conference, a particular audience, and a particular intellectual moment, so to speak. And then, of course, colleagues also be able to recognize common weaknesses in conference abstracts. And these include abstracts that are too broad, too descriptive, or untailoring purpose, but we'll unpack that a little bit later. And then you'll also be able to apply a practical abstract writing structure to improve your own submission. And this is important, I believe, because the session is not only about understanding the abstract, it's about writing them better. And finally, you should also understand how a strong abstract can become the foundation for the conference paper, of course, and then possibly later the journal article. So as you can observe, the outcomes are deliberately practical. And my aim is that, by the end of the session, you do not merely know more about abstracts, but you have a clearer way to write one. So with that, colleagues, let's begin with the first and the most important question: why does the abstract matter? So perhaps begin by challenging a common misconception. Because very often, people prepare for a conference. When they do prepare for a conference, they treat the abstract as a kind of an administrative box to be completed. There's a form, there's a word limit, there's a deadline, and the abstract becomes something we quickly produce so that we can submit and move on. But that is not the best way to think about it. A conference abstract is not merely an administrative requirement. It is the first scholarly act of the paper. It is the first time the reviewer encounters your idea. It's the first time your topic is framed as a problem. And it's the first time your intended contribution becomes visible. And in many cases, it's the only piece of writing on which the initial decision will be made. So we should not think of the abstract as a small piece of writing because it's unimportant. We should think of it as a small piece of writing that carries a large responsibility. So a strong abstract does not simply say, this is what I'm interested in. It says, this is the issue I'm addressing, and this is why it matters, how I will approach it, and this is what the paper will contribute. So in that sense, again, I'm using the term, the abstract is a scholarly promise. It makes a promise to the reviewer that the presentation has focus. A promise that the audience, for the audience is that it will be relevant. And it makes a promise even to yourself as the writer that the eventual paper has direction. And that's also, I think, why writing the abstract can be difficult. You know, the word count is short, but the intellectual work is quite demanding because you have to make choices. You have to decide what belongs and what does not belong. And you have to move from broad interest to clear focus. So instead of asking, how do I fill in the abstract box? I think a better question would be, what is the scholarly promise that I am making? And that shift, I believe, changes everything. It moves us from a vague description and towards academic clarity. And it helps us write abstracts that reviewers can understand and can trust and can support. And it gives us a stronger foundation for the conference paper that may follow. If the abstract then is a scholarly promise, then the next question we need to ask is, what exactly must it promise? So, moving from the topic to the scholarly contribution. And one of the most common reasons abstracts remain weak is that they stop too early. They stop at the level of a topic. Now, of course, colleagues, a topic is important. Yes, we all need a topic. But a topic on its own is not yet a paper. A topic only tells us the general idea in which the work is located. It does not yet tell us what problem is being addressed, what question is being asked, what argument is being developed, or what contribution is being made. So, for example, if I say, my topic is artificial intelligence in business schools. Now that gives us a broad area, but it does not yet give us a conference paper. Because the reviewer will ask, you know, what about artificial intelligence in business schools? Is the focus curriculum? Is it assessment? Academic integrity? Graduate employability? Or governance or ethics? Or what? You know, accreditation, institutional readiness, what? What about the artificial intelligence in business schools? So then the first shift in writing a strong abstract is to move from the topic to the problem. And the problem identifies the tension or the gap or the concern or the challenge or perhaps an unresolved issue that makes the paper necessary. And latching on to my example, business schools are under pressure to integrate artificial intelligence into curricula, but many institutions lack a coherent framework for responsible adoption. So now we've moved beyond the topic. We have a problem. So there's a pressure to adopt AI, but there's also a lack of coherent guidance. And that tension creates the need for scholarly work. And from there, we move to our purpose. And the purpose tells the reader what the paper intends to do. For example, this paper explores how business schools can approach AI curriculum integration through the lens of responsible leadership. Okay, as an example. Now the reader knows the direction of the paper, but we're still not finished, because a strong abstract should also indicate the argument or the insight or the finding. What will the paper show or propose or demonstrate or analyze or argue? And then finally, we should make the contribution very visible. What does the paper add? Why should the conference audience care? What value does the paper bring to scholarship and to practice, or to leadership and policy, teaching and all, and the like? So, as we said then, with reference, just recapping briefly, we begin with a topic, we sharpen the topic into a problem, translate the problem into a clear purpose, and we give the paper direction with an argument or an insight. And we make the value clear through the contribution. So a simple way then to test the abstract is to ask, am I merely naming a topic, or am I making a scholarly contribution visible? If the abstract only tells us what the paper is about, it's probably still too descriptive. If it tells us what issue the paper addresses, why that issue matters, how the paper approaches it, and what it contributes, then we are moving towards a stronger conference abstract. And once we understand that transition, we can look more closely at the building blocks of a strong abstract. And colleagues, you'll hear some repetitions in what I'm sharing with you, but that's with a purpose, so that the concepts can become embedded. It's like seed, and that you have to water the seed, and so that the seed can grow. So let's move on to our next slide, making things a bit more concrete. So on this slide now, we move from the broad topic to a sharper abstract logic. And the point is to show how an initial area of interest can be developed into something that begins to look like a conference abstract. Now, again, like in our broad example, broad topic, AI in business schools. Now, there's nothing wrong with this as a starting point. Yes, it's relevant. Of course, it's timely and it's important. But as it stands, it's far too broad. It does not yet tell the reviewer what the paper will actually do. So we begin sharpening it, where we identify a more specific concern. As we said, business schools under growing pressure to integrate AI into teaching, learning, assessment, and curriculum design, which gives us context. But context is not yet a problem. So the problem emerges when we identify the tension. As per our example, while there's pressure to integrate the AI, many institutions are still uncertain about how to do so responsibly, coherently, and educationally, for that matter. Now we have something more focused. There's a tension between adoption pressure and responsible implementation. So from there, we can develop a purpose statement. For example, this paper explores how business schools can approach AI curriculum integration through the lens of responsible leadership. Now, notice what has happened. The paper is no longer just about AI in business schools. It has direction. It's about AI curriculum integration. and it is viewed through a particular conceptual lens, that of, let's say, responsible leadership or responsible stewardship, whatever the lens might be. And we can then add the likely argument or the insight. For example, the paper argues that responsible AI integration requires more than technical adoption. It requires alignment between curriculum design, academic integrity, graduate competence, institutional governance, and social responsibility. Now, the paper has intellectual weight. The writer is beginning to make an argument. And then finally, we articulate the contribution. So the paper contributes a conceptual framework to support business schools in making more responsible and educationally coherent decisions about AI adoption. Now, I'm sure you'll agree with me, that is much stronger than simply saying, this paper discusses AI in business schools. So I think the key issue here is that a strong abstract does not merely move from broad to narrow. It moves from broad interest to scholarly logic. So the logic then usually follows the sequence. The context, again, where's the work actually located? And I'm hammering on these points, but the problem. So what the issue and the tension or the gap might be. Then, of course, always a purpose. There must be a telos, to what end? What does the paper intend to do? And then how will I go about developing the issue? And of course, the argument or the insight side of things, what does the paper show or propose or claim? And wrapping it with a contribution, what value does the paper add? So colleagues, when you look at your own idea, ask yourself, have I moved far enough from a broad topic? And can the reviewer see the problem? Can the reviewer see the purpose? And can the reviewer see the likely contribution? And if the answer is yes, then your abstract's already becoming stronger. But now that we've seen the movement or the transition or the scaffolding or the layering, whatever you want to call it, in practice, let's unpack the actual anatomy of a strong abstract. And I use the word anatomy deliberately.
How much? Where are you going? Sorry.
I'm also trying to
Cobus, are you muted?
I don't know how that happened, Denver, but anyway, we live in a weird world, eh? Okay, right. Anatomy, using it deliberately, because a strong abstract is not just a paragraph made up of interesting sentences. It has parts, like your body, and those parts need to work together. So a strong abstract usually contains the elements, the core elements that you see there on the slide. And again, the context, starting off with that, which tells the reader where the work is located, and of course identifies the broader field, the setting, the debate, or the practical environment. For example, the context may be business education or accreditation, or responsible management education, or digital transformation, assessment, leadership, and the like. There are many possibilities. Curriculum innovation, institutional quality assurance, etc., etc. So the context should not, however, take over the abstract. it should simply orient the reader. 1 or 2 sentences are often enough. And then on to the problem or the gap, where this is where the abstract can become stronger or weaker, because the problem tells us why the paper, again, is necessary. It may be a gap in the literature. It may be a practical challenge. As I said earlier on, even maybe an unresolved tension or a policy concern. There might even be conceptual weakness or an emerging issue that needs closer attention. So without a problem or the gap, the abstract often becomes descriptive, and it tells us, therefore, what the paper is about, but not why the paper matters. And that's very, very important. And if we then consider the purpose or the aim, it's where we tell the reader what the paper sets out to do. And here, there's useful phrases which you all are very well au fait with. This paper explores, or this paper examines, or this paper argues, or evaluates, proposes, or reflects on. And you know all of those kind of those verbs. So the purpose statement should be direct. The reviewer should not have to infer what the paper is trying to do. And then the method or the approach, of course, very important. It briefly indicates how the paper will proceed. This does not only apply to empirical research, colleagues, of course. If your paper is conceptual, say so. If it's based on a case study, say so. If it's reflective or theoretical or case-based or literature-informed, make that clear. Because the reviewer needs confidence that the paper has a credible way of developing its argument. And that leads me into the element of the key argument, the finding or the expected insight. And this is where the abstract begins to show direction. What will the paper argue or demonstrate or propose? So for empirical papers, this may refer to findings. For conceptual papers, it may refer to the central argument. Or for a practice-based paper, it may refer to a key lesson or insight, something of that kind. So, by example, a weak abstract says this paper will discuss, whereas a stronger abstract would say this paper argues that, or this paper demonstrates that, or this paper proposes, etc. And then, of course, these words, you're going to dream about them tonight. The so what, the contribution, that's where we answer the so what. Why should the reviewer care? Why should the conference audience care? And what does the paper add? So the contribution, of course, may be theoretical, practical, methodological, institutional, pedagogical, and all those big words, policy related. It doesn't have to change the world, but it must add something clear and credible. So in simple terms, colleagues, the structure, again, just, where's the work located? Why is the work necessary? What does the paper set out to do? How will the paper proceed? The purpose or the aim, and then of course the key argument or the insight. What does the paper show? Why does it matter? And when these 6 elements are present and connected, the abstract becomes something of substance. It gives the reviewer confidence that the presenter knows what they are doing, why they are doing it, and what value the paper will bring to the conference. But of course, the key is not to treat these elements on the slide as 6 separate boxes. They must form one coherent paragraph or set of paragraphs. The context should lead naturally to the problem. And the problem should justify the purpose. And in turn, the purpose should align with the approach of the method. or the method. And then, of course, that approach should support the argument or the insight. And of course, the contribution should flow from the whole abstract. And that's what we mean by abstract coherence. Now, with that, let us now turn the anatomy into let's call it a practical formula that you can use when drafting your own abstract. From the anatomy, turning to more of a structure into, or call it then I'm hesitant to use the word formula because, and I'll tell you why now, but that's just a word I'm using for purposes to make it clear. I'm not suggesting that every abstract must sound exactly the same. We don't want formulistic writing in the negative sense. But when we are trying to write clearly, especially under a tight word limit, a formula then can be useful. It helps us to make sure that the abstract does the intellectual work that it needs to do. So, and this is what, as you see on the slide, a practical abstract formula might look like. And the words you'll notice that come from what we've discussed. In the context of, this paper addresses the problem gap of, da-da-da-da. The purpose of the paper is to, da-da-da-da. Drawing on or using or through your story. The paper argues, shows or proposes or demonstrates or finds that your narrative. And the contribution of the paper lies in what? So, colleagues, then let's just breathe deeply and re-emphasize here. The context one would, of course, help us locate the paper, whether it's in the context of business education, if it's quality assurance or accreditation, curriculum innovation, or whatever. And then the second one there helps us move beyond the topic, as we said. It forces us to say why the paper is needed. And then in terms of the purpose, that gives, again, the abstract direction. And as I've said, one of the most important sentences in the abstract, because it tells the reviewer exactly what the paper intends to do. And then the drawing on or using or through, which introduces the approach, the method, whether referring to a theoretical framework, a literature review, or empirical data, or a case study, conception analysis, and the like. And then the argument side of things, the showing, the proposing, the demonstrating, it gives the abstract intellectual substance, moves the paper away from simply discussing a topic and towards making a claim or offering an insight. And then where the contribution then lies in. Again, answering the so what question. Telling the reviewer what the audience will gain from the presentation. Now, you do not have to use these exact words, colleagues, of course. In fact, in the final version, you may want to vary the phrasing so that the abstract reads naturally. But as a drafting tool, I think this formula might be very useful. It gives you a way also to test your abstract. Because if you cannot complete the sentences, for example, this paper addresses the problem of, then your paper may still be too broad. Or if you cannot complete the sentence, the contribution of this paper lies in, then the value of the paper may not yet be visible. So
Cobus,
the formula is not meant you.
Cobus, there's a question from Alan Basikolo. He's asking, does this format also apply to graphical abstracts?
To graphical abstracts.
Yeah.
Perhaps just explain, if you talk about the graphical abstracts, are we now talking about arts and so forth, in more towards the arts?
Alan, can you hop on here?
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you ask your question of Cobus,
Hello,
please?
hello. Alan, are you
Hello.
referring? Just if you can just articulate your question, please.
Yeah, actually, my question was just to find out if the format which you are teaching us can also apply to graphical abstracts. You know, sometimes these reviewers or these journals, they may also require someone to present the abstract, but in a graphical way. So I'm
Oh,
trying
okay.
to,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. Alan, I want to say, I would suggest that this could really serve as a practical abstract that you could also use that in that case as well. Yes, as long as those core elements are also then covered in your graphical abstract. So I would say yes. If anybody disagrees, welcome to do so. But colleagues, so it helps you move just from the general idea to the coherent abstract to help you see what's missing, also help ensuring you that every sentence is doing useful work. And maybe I must repeat it, that every sentence is doing useful work. And I know it's sometimes a challenge when you are confronted with word limits. So the abstract is not about saying everything. It's about saying the right things clearly, coherently, and convincingly. And once we have call it then this formula, then maybe the next question then is whether the abstract fits the conference to which it is being submitted. Now, you see on the top of that slide, right for this conference, not for any conference. So moving from the structure to the next issue of fit. Colleagues, a strong abstract is not only well written, it's also well positioned. In other words, it should be clear to the reviewer why this paper belongs at this particular conference and not just at any conference. And I would suggest that's an important point because many abstracts are written in a generic way. You know, they may be academically sound, but they could have been submitted almost anywhere. The topic may be interesting, the purpose may be clear, the method may be credible, but the abstract does not clearly speak to the specific conference audience. Now, with reference to where we are, for the ACBSP Region 8 conference, we should think carefully about who the audience is likely to be. Now, it may include business school leaders, deans, directors, program managers, academic managers, quality assurance professionals, even accreditation practitioners or lecturers, educators, researchers, postgraduate supervisors, and colleagues interested in responsible and future fit education. So when you write your abstract, ask yourself, why would this audience care? If it's about curriculum, make the connection then to business education visible. If it's about assessment, make the connection to learning quality, graduate competence, or assurance of learning visible. If the paper is about AI or digital transformation or innovation, make the connection to responsible business school practice visible. And perhaps even if it's about leadership, is to make the connection to institutional development or academic leadership or management education visible. Another example, if it's about accreditation, then make the connection to quality, continuous improvement, and educational impact visible. Now, this does not mean that you must force the conference language into every sentence, It does not mean that every abstract must sound the same. and it certainly doesn't mean that you should artificially decorate the abstract with keywords. Rather, it means that the relevance of the paper should be clear. So the reviewer should not have to work too hard to see the fit. The abstract itself should make the connection visible. And a useful test is this, that after you read your abstract, you ask yourself, or would you hear someone say, rather, the reviewer say, I can see why this paper belongs in this conference program. And if you think that the person will say yes, the fit is probably clear. And if you can't, if it's no, then your paper might need to be repositioned, even if the underlying idea is good. So, colleagues, write for this conference, write for this audience, write with the conference theme, the purpose, and the participants in mind. So, a strong abstract does not only say, here's my paper. It would say, here is why this paper matters in this scholarly and professional conversation. And having considered this fit now, let's now take a look at some of the common weaknesses that often prevent otherwise good ideas from becoming strong abstracts. So I think it's important to also reflect on these common weaknesses. Because many weak abstracts are not based on weak ideas. Often the underlying idea is good, but the abstract does not yet express it clearly enough. And as you see on the slide, the first common weakness is that the abstract is too broad. And this happens when the writer tries to address a very large issue in a very small space. For example, this paper examines the future of business education in Africa. Now that may be an important topic, but it's too wide, you'll agree with me, colleagues, for a conference paper unless it is narrowed significantly.
Hoe gaat het, man? Ja.
Lekker, Justin. All right. Now, a stronger abstract would identify a more focused aspect of that broader concern. Perhaps curriculum innovation, accreditation, assurance of learning, graduate employability, and the like. Then it also might be that the abstract is too descriptive. A descriptive abstract tells us what the paper's about, but not what the paper does. It may say, this paper discusses leadership in higher education, but it does not identify a problem, an argument, or an approach and a contribution. A stronger abstract moves from this paper discusses to, as we said, this paper examines or argues, proposes, evaluates, or demonstrates. There's a significant difference in how that comes across. And when there's an unclear purpose, and sometimes the reader cannot tell what the paper is trying to achieve. The abstract may contain many interesting ideas, but no clear aim. A simple sentence such as, the purpose of this paper is to, can of course immediately improve clarity when using those words. And when, another weakness could be a missing approach or a method, which we find quite frequently. The reviewer wants to know how the paper will be developed. Is it empirical, conceptual, theoretical, and the things that I've mentioned before? Is it literature-based? Is it reflective, case-based? Because without some indication of approach, the abstract may feel underdeveloped. And then, of course, the weakness of a hidden or an absent contribution. I'm belaboring these points, colleagues. This is, again, the so what. And the abstract may describe the topic, even state the purpose, but the reader's left wondering why the paper matters. What will the audience gain? What does the paper add to the conversation? And then, of course, the overclaiming, sometimes an abstract promises too much. It claims that the paper will solve a major global problem, transform the field, or provide a comprehensive framework for everything. Now, reviewers tend to be cautious of exaggerated claims. Strong abstracts are confident, yes, but also measured and credible. And then, of course, the excessive or the jargon heavy. Now, academic writing, of course, should be precise, but precision is not the same as complexity just for its own sake. If the abstract sounds impressive but remains vague, the reviewer may struggle to see the actual contribution. So clarity is not the enemy of scholarly depth. And then the last one that we see there, colleagues, is the poor fit. Again, abstract may be very, very interesting, but it does not clearly connect with the conference. The reviewer should not have to guess why the paper belongs. So, colleagues, when you revise your abstract, ask a few simple questions. Is it focused? Is the problem clear? Is the purpose explicit? Is the approach credible? Is the contribution visible? Is the claim realistic? Is the language clear? And is the conference fit obvious? Again, yes to those, and you are on a good trajectory. But now, let's move from the diagnosing of the weaknesses to strengthening the abstract through a few practical fixes. And a bit of a revision test. You have a draft abstract, so the next step is not simply to check the word count and then to submit. It's revision, okay? And you might say, yeah, but this is the same amount of work goes into this that eventually ends up going into the presentation, the paper for presentation and further on. Yes, we said earlier on this, even the abstract takes work. So the revision is not only about correcting spelling and grammar and punctuation. Yeah, it matters, of course, for sure, but they come later. The first level of revision is intellectual revision. So before asking, is this sentence polished? We should rather ask, is this scholarly logic clear? So a useful revision test is just to read your abstract and ask the questions that you see on the screen. Is the focus clear? Can the reviewer immediately see what the paper's about? Not just the broad field, the specific focus. If the abstract could still be about 5 different papers, it's probably too broad. And then the problem visible, does it show why the paper is necessary? Is there a gap? Is there a tension? Whatever concern, unresolved issue that gives this paper its reasoning, or its reason rather, than for existing. In that purpose that must be explicit, can the reviewer identify what the paper sets out to do? A strong abstract should not make the reader guess the aim. And again, as I've said, a direct sentence such as the purpose of this paper is to, it kind of brings immediate clarity. And then, of course, the approach credible. Does it indicate how the paper will, how it will proceed? As we said, all things might be empirical, practice-based, whatever, and the like. The reviewer needs to trust that the paper has a credible basis. And then, of course, the one about the argument or the insight that's emerging. Does the abstract suggest that the paper will show, or will argue, or will propose, or will demonstrate? Even if the work is still developing, the abstract should not sound directionless. And then belaboring the point, beating my drum, is the contribution visible? The so what test. What does the paper add? What will the audience gain? And then, of course, the conference fit, which we've spoken about. And, you also have to check, of course, the language is clear and economical. Every word in an abstract has to work. I remember of a colleague that used to say, every word must ooze wisdom. so every word in the abstract has to have a purpose and it must work. If a sentence is decorative but not useful, remove it. If a phrase sounds impressive but does not clarify meaning, then simplify it. If you repeat the same idea in different words, tighten it. So this revision test is nothing spectacular, but it's useful because it shifts the writer from attachment to diagnosis, because we all become attached to our own wording. But a strong abstract is not about protecting every sentence. It's about making the paper's logic visible. So when you revise, do not only ask, do I like how this sounds? But rather, will a reviewer understand what I'm doing, why it matters, how I will do it, and what it contributes? If the answer is no, the abstract needs further revision. Again, not because the idea is weak, but because the idea is not yet clear enough on the page. But now, colleagues, let's shift a gear. On the screen, you'll see 8 prompts. Because we've spoken till now about the role of the abstract, the movement from the topic to the contribution, the anatomy of it, the practical formula, the common weaknesses and the revision test. I'd like us now to apply that thinking. So, as I said, you see the 8 prompts. So they're designed to help you move from a broad idea to the basic logic of a strong conference abstract. And for now, you do not need to write perfect sentences at this stage. In fact, I would actually encourage you not to worry too much about polishing wording. The purpose here is not final editing. The purpose is to clarify your thinking. So the first prompt being the broad topic. That's the starting point. Maybe something like digital transformation or accreditation, assessment, curriculum innovation, graduate employability, entrepreneurship education, artificial intelligence, quality assurance, whatever. That's kind of the starting point. So the topic there will still be very broad, of course, but that's fine. We simply need somewhere to begin. A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one single step. And then the second prompt is a specific problem or the gap or the challenge. And this is where the real work begins. What's the issue inside that topic? What is unclear? What is unresolved? What is contested or underdeveloped? What will make this paper necessary? Remember, a topic tells us where you are working. And a problem then tells us why the work matters. The third prompt there is it matters because, and that's why that's where you're identifying the significance of the issue. Why should anyone care? Why does this matter for business schools or students or graduates, employers, for curriculum designers, for policymakers, or society more broadly? Because the sentence that's merely interesting to you, it helps you write one that is relevant to others. And then the fourth prompt, the purpose of my paper, where you state what the paper will actually do. And this is where you try to use strong academic verbs, like the explore, examine, analyze, evaluate, compare, demonstrate. You guys all know those words very well. Be as specific as possible. If the purpose statement is vague, the abstract will probably remain vague. And then the fifth prompt, the method. Here you briefly clarify how we'll develop this. The empirical, the conceptual, critical, etc. as we've spoken about. Does it draw on a particular framework, maybe a model, or even a body picture? And that gives the reviewer the confidence that the paper is not just an opinion piece. It has a way of proceeding. And then our prompt of the central argument asks you to think about what the paper will say. Is the claim, show, argue, or pose? And what insight will the audience take away? And then, of course, finding for conceptual, maybe an argument, or for a practice-based work, it might be a lesson or an insight. Then the contribution. The so what? And the contribution does not need to be exaggerated. It simply needs to be clear and credible. And then our last prompt there is the conference audience should care because this is what brings us to belong with this particular audience, benefit from it. To take where are we for time? And 12:03. I'd like you to take. Let's take 5 minutes. We don't. Again, this will not make you to complete this by today. But and of course the aim is not perfection, but it's more about clarity. Even if it's complete rough phases, that is useful because you're building the intellectual skeleton of your abstract. And once you've all those addressed, you'll have for a strong first draft. So, you can then begin shaping the answers into a coherent paragraph or paragraphs, tightening the wording, checking the word limit, and applying the revision test we discussed earlier. So I'd like us for now just to take 5 more. What's the time now? 12:04. Let's be back, or you can just put your mics up. I'll reconvene then at 12:10, if that's okay with you. 12:10, we can just reconvene. So just on a rough paper there next to you, colleagues, or where, your notebook or whatever, just run through those. If you've got a blank canvas, maybe you can start with something now. Even if you've done something already, something that you can, revisit, to do that. But let's take 5-6 minutes just to work through these prompts, and then we'll come back, and then I will move on to the finalization of this presentation today. All right, let's go. A blank canvas still, or they've perhaps already worked on something, but this could be a useful approach to tackle it. So, right, now with that, let's just step back and place the abstract within the larger scholarly journey, because the abstract is not the end point. It is the beginning of a pathway. If written well, the abstract already contains the intellectual architecture of the paper. It may be short, but it should hold the basic structure of what the paper will later become. Think of it in this way. The context in your abstract becomes the opening section in your paper. It helps you introduce the broader field, the debate or the setting. And of course, the problem or the gap in your abstract becomes the rationale of the paper. It explains why the paper is necessary and why the reader should continue. And then the purpose statement, or the aim, object, purpose, becomes the organizing direction of the paper. It tells the reader what the paper sets out to do and keeps you, of course, as the writer, focused. Now, then onto the approach or the method becomes the methodological, the conceptual, the theoretical, or the practical basis of the paper. It shows how the paper proceeds and on what foundation the argument is built. And then the key argument is the finding or the insight that becomes the core of the paper. That's where you develop or you substantiate or explain, illustrate, or you defend. And the contribution becomes the conclusion and the publication rationale that answers the final question, what does this paper add? So colleagues, when you write a strong abstract, you're not merely preparing a short submission. You're already designing the paper. And this is also a further reason why the abstract becomes is so important and it matters so much. A vague abstract often leads to a vague paper. But a focused abstract can guide the writing process that follows. And for purposes of this conference, there's also a further developmental opportunity. A strong abstract may become, the accepted conference presentation. That presentation, of course, developed into a fuller conference paper. And for some presenters, the paper may later be refined into a manuscript suitable for consideration in the Perspectives in Education special edition. Now, of course, a conference paper and a journal article are not the same thing. A journal article usually requires stronger theoretical framing, clearer methodology, and of course, deeper engagement with literature, more careful argumentation, and of course, a more explicit contribution. And that is exactly why we have a second session coming up in September. We have that planned to focus then on the shift from the conference paper to a publishable article. But I think the key message for now is this, is to begin with the end in mind. I know, yes, I stole that from Stephen Covey, okay? Begin with the end in mind. Do not write the abstract as though it exists only for the submission portal. Write it as the first disciplined expression of a paper that may grow. So if you can make the problem, the purpose, the approach, the insight, and the contribution clear at abstract stage, you are already laying a strong foundation for a much stronger conference paper and potentially later a much stronger journal manuscript. So let us close then, colleagues, just by returning to the most important takeaways and the immediate next steps after today's session. So, as I close, let me just bring the session back to a few practical next steps. And the first one, the first step is to draft early. I think Denver has already indicated at the beginning, the 31st of July is the submission deadline for abstracts. Don't wait until that deadline is too close, because a strong abstract usually needs more than one attempt. Your first version helps you to get the idea onto the page. And your second version helps to clarify the logic. And the third version then helps you sharpen the wording. And then I think a logical next step is to test the abstract against the basic structure that we've discussed today. You know, have you made the context clear? Have you identified the problem or the gap or the challenge? Have you stated the purpose of the paper directly? Have you indicated your method or your approach? Have you made the key argument or the finding or the insight visible? And of course, I will get a t-shirt with the word contribution. Have you explained the contribution? And have you shown why the paper belongs at this conference? And then, of course, is to revise for clarity. And remember, clarity is not the opposite of academic depth. Eh? In many ways, clarity is one of the signs of academic maturity. If the reviewer has to work too hard to understand what the paper is about, the abstract is not yet doing its work. And then a suggested fourth step is to ask for feedback. So before submitting, is to ask maybe a colleague just to read the abstract and ask them after they've read it. You ask your colleague, so what's my paper about? And so, colleague, you know, why does it matter? And what do you perceive that it contributes? What does it contribute? And if they cannot answer those questions after reading the abstract, then, of course, the abstract may still need revision. And I think there's another step also is to keep the publication pathway in mind. In that the abstract is not just about the conference acceptance, it is also the first disciplined expression of a paper that may grow into a presentation, a conference paper, and perhaps, as I said later, the journal publication. So, colleagues, as you leave today's session, I would encourage you to think of your abstract as the beginning of a scholarly journey. Start with a focused idea, clarify the problem, state the purpose, indicate your method or your approach, and make the contribution visible. And of course, write in a way that helps the reviewer understand not only what the paper is about, but why it matters. So with that, from me, I really want to thank you for your participation today, your presence here. And I really hope the session has given you a practical way to approach your abstract. And of course, look forward to seeing strong submissions emerge for the ACBSP Region 8 conference. And we also look forward to continuing the journey then in the second session that will follow this particular one. There are the others in between, yes, but as far as the publication pathway is concerned, that would only come in September, where we will focus on moving then from the conference paper to a published article. Now, for those of you who perhaps are still on the blank canvas, or maybe a few rough notes already, the detail for the abstract submission, etc., can be found at the Region 8 conference website that you see on the screen, or if you follow the QR code that will also take you in that direction. And with that, I again thank you. It was an absolute honor and a pleasure. I don't know if there's perhaps an observation, a question, comment, or anything at this particular time. And I'll hand the baton, as they say, back to our esteemed program director.
Thank you, Cobus. That was really very good and clear. And it's such a very practical and generous session. It's always wonderful to hear from you with your insight and expertise. So I think also just planning forward for the conference, this was a really clear way to think about shaping an idea into a focus conference abstract. So I just want to thank you. If there are any questions, obviously we can deal with them now. Are there any questions? Let's just open the floor for a few minutes if there are questions. And if they're not, that's also fine.
Let's open.
That's fine. You know exactly what you're doing. So yes, I just want to say thank you also to Denver Greek and the ACBSP Region 8 for partnering with SABSA on this series that we're going to be running, and to everybody who joined us today from all over the world. Actually, we've had people joining us globally, which is very exciting, and not just from South Africa. I've shared a lot of the registration links for the upcoming events that are going to be taking place up until October. They're in the chat. And please follow us on LinkedIn. It's South African Business Schools Association. Will be posting all the registration details and more energy around what is happening over the next couple of months. So please follow us there to keep updated. The follow-up session to Cobus' session now is on the 22nd of September. That's regarding the abstract. But there are obviously a range of other ones that will be of interest, hopefully. So please tell your colleagues, share all the information. We do not charge for these webinars and training capacity building events. It is really, we work from a non-profit basis. And this is from our South African Business Schools as a gift to you. So we use all our very experienced professional deans and directors and faculty to help share knowledge. So please take note of that and enjoy it. And Cobus, once again, thanks very much. And we look forward to seeing you at the next one, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Denver.
All right. Denver, are there any closing words you would like to have?
No, you said it so well, and so thank you much, and thank you so much. And Cobus, thank you so much as well. We really appreciate it. It was really informative. So thank you very much. And thank you to everyone who participated.
Marvelous. We'll
Thank
see
you.
you at
Thank
the
you.
next one. All right, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.